Hello and welcome to Fantasy Sports Today here on Fantasy Sports Network. I'm Laura Diakun, joined alongside Garion Thorne as well as Chris Meaney. The three of us will be on the show tomorrow. We've got a special FST Thursday edition, Thanksgiving Thursday, as we get you set for all three games on the schedule. We're going to be enemies for a little bit.
We are.
Can never hate Garion.
I'm a nice guy.
You're a Dolphins fan, so I feel bad for you right there. On the show today, we've got Jake Seeley from Roto Experts as well as Matt Sitkoff from NHL Network. So we've got a little bit of everything on the show today, but the three of us, as we are wont to do here on Wednesdays, little basketball, fantasy basketball here. And Goran Dragic is where we're going to start off, and he was unfortunately benched. Well, saw his numbers have been really going down, minutes especially, but benched on Monday against the Raptors after shooting just 33%, putting up a whopping 6 points. So he's in the midst of quite the struggles right now. Hasn't scored more than 12 points over his last 4 games. So with someone with that kind of potential, smart to hold on to him. You just kind of ride out the slump here a little bit.
I'm genuinely concerned, and I'm a guy who owns Dragic in almost 75% of my leagues right now. I was very high on his stock, a guy who was third-team NBA last season. But right now, it just doesn't seem like the lineup constructs are really tapered to his strengths. And I don't think, I'm not going to say he's necessarily falling out of favor with the coaching staff, but right now, if you go by their best 5-man lineups in terms of point differential, he is not in any of the top 3 lineups right now. Isaiah Thomas is. And he's just producing right now for them. And then if you look in terms of the 2 worst possible 5-man lineups that the Suns could put on the court, those are the only 2 lineups that that feature both Dragic and Thomas. They don't have games that mesh well together. They're 2 completely different types of players. And they just don't see court time together. When you have a guy of Thomas's ability, and you already are paying Eric Bledsoe a ton of money, Gerald Green is going to get his minutes. There's so many guys in the backcourt who are just capable NBA players that it seems like Dragic has sort of, fallen out of this rotation and only averaging 22 minutes over his last 3 games, 9.8 points over his last 4, has only had 5+ assists in 2 games this year. And this is a guy we were comparing to Steve Nash last season. So, I mean, it's all happening a little quickly, but, sometimes with these sorts of situations, you have to react fast. And I'm not saying Dragic couldn't have, future value. I mean, he's going to be a free agent. He's going to test the free agent waters, but you might have to sell him now, even though his value is at probably 2/3 of what it was at the beginning of the season, because he could really bottom out.
It's just not a really good situation for fantasy. Basically, there are 3 point guards in Phoenix. You talk about Bledsoe and you talk about Isaiah Thomas. It's not really a good situation there. His assists are down 3 fewer assists per game, 6 fewer points per game. His shot attempts are down. He shot 14 attempts last year. It's down to 12. He's not getting to the line. He averaged 5 free throws attempts last year. He's only averaging 2, and he's not hitting a 3 per game, and he averaged almost 2 threes per game last year. So it's not a really good situation. I think you almost had to expect this, though. I think it's a good situation for Phoenix, but it's not a good fantasy situation, and you nailed it. He's going to be a free agent. I think he's going to get traded. You don't drop him. You have him, and that's what it is. Like, you're not going to drop him. I just think if he does get traded, you're going to be in a better situation. If he does put together a couple good games in a row, then you go ahead and you sell him, because it's going to be iffy here and there for the rest of the year, especially if he stays with the Phoenix.
And they've yet to use, I know a lot of people in the preseason were talking about this, because, this wasn't something that sprang up on us. Right. It was something we kind of expected. They have 3 premier point guards. They haven't yet used in 15 games the 3-point guard set. At no time have all 3 of them been on the court simultaneously. So I don't think that's going to change either. So, like Chris said, you kind of wait for him to have a couple great games or good games even at this point, and then you try to sell him.
So Goran Dragic, all the stats, everything, the minutes are going like that. Yeah. Mario Chalmers, the opposite's really happening. Everything's going up, and he's been the lucky recipient with Dwayne Wade out the last 7 games. His numbers are going up. Unfortunately, he didn't have a very good last game. He was shot just 23%, but the 3 previous games before that, he was in the 60% range. So very good numbers there for him. But is his value limited? Because Wade's going to come back at some point. But as we know, old man Wade, much like Derrick Rose there, yes, injury prone a little bit.
Apparently Wade looked explosive at practice today.
Sure.
I don't believe that. Chalmers, he's a great daily play right now. Yeah, the numbers are up because Wade's missed 7 games, like you said, and Wade's probably going to come back a little bit. I look at his last 7 games, 19 points, averaging 19 points, 5 assists. But if you look at his points and his production with Wade in the lineup, 7 points, 1 assist, 18 points, 4 assists, that was good. But he had 2 points, 4 assists, 6 points, 3 assists. His numbers are not good when Wade's there, but now Wade's out of the lineup, and who knows how long, Wade could be out of the lineup all year, and he probably will be. Like, he'll play here and there, but most of the time, he'll probably be banged up and need some rest. So I think he's a great daily play. I'm not really big on him other than that, though.
Well, I mean, it's almost like the Aaron Brooks situation we were talking about a little bit before. I mean, Dwayne Wade could easily be out of the lineup for another 5-game, 6-game stretch, or a couple of those throughout the rest of the season. But the one difference that you might see with Chalmers is that he's played so well in these 7 games without Wade in the lineup that he at least may have gotten his own starting job back. It's tough to tell necessarily. Last night, Norris Cole and Mario Chalmers did start, but that's because Wade wasn't starting. So when he comes back, it's really a question of whose starting job gets taken away. And I think Chalmers has earned his job back. So, you know, Chris was talking about the stats so far without Wade. That was him coming off the bench. So if he's starting games, that's a whole lot different. And right now his usage rate, 23.1%. And again, playing half the season without your premier scoring option is going to do that for a guy, but it had never been above 17.4% in his entire career. So, and he was shooting pretty well before last night's 4 for 17. And don't just throw that away either. Someone taking 17 shots, it doesn't matter how well they did. Just the fact they were taking 17 shots is somewhat promising in fantasy aspects. But he was shooting 57.6% over those 6 games. So he's had a very nice run here. Like Chris was saying, probably a better daily play at this point. But you know, I picked him up, and I've been running this little streak here. So I don't think he's a terrible play in a 14-man league.
No, at least 3 in 7 straight games, at least a steal in 6 straight games. You've even seen Shabazz Napier have pretty solid games too, where he was really quiet but waited out of the lineup. Shabazz Napier is hitting threes here and there too. So again, yeah, you're right. He probably does have a starting job back, but when Wade comes, I see his production coming down a little bit.
Well, we know Wilson Chandler still has the starting job at small forward for the Nuggets, but Danillo Galinari kind of putting some heat on there, especially over the last few games, averaging 14 points over his 3 games there, and he is a threat from downtown.